Welcome to another Business Spotlight Series episode. My name is Nate Woods. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach Peachtree, and today I'm joined by Michael, the Facilitator Wilkinson. He is the founder of Leadership Strategies, which is the largest facilitation company in the U.S. Today we're going to talk a little bit about his business, his journey to business ownership, some challenges he's faced, best practices he's learned, and take a look into what it's really like to run and operate his business. If it's your first time on the channel, make sure to like and subscribe so you get notifications when we drop new interviews like this one. And Michael, thank you so much for joining me today.
It is my pleasure to be with you. It's great, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share with your audience.
Absolutely. So share with our viewers a little bit, just give a brief overview of your background and kind of tell us high level what it is that you do.
Excellent. So I guess I can't talk about my background, Nate, without saying very clearly, if you were to look up the word affirmative action in the dictionary, you would likely see my face. Okay, so I'm projects kid. I grew up in the projects of DC, really bad neighborhood for those who know DC, Anacostia in the 60s, which nasty place. And I'm stealing by the age of 6. We were tying kids to trees and leaving them all night at 8. But I happened to was a paper boy with the Washington Post. And so they gave interviews for private schools. I ended up going to an interview and got accepted at one of the New England prep schools where you coat and tie to classes. Our class was a class of 50 and you may not know these names, but we had Henry Otis Chapman III from the Hamptons. We had the Stacks from Greenwich, Connecticut. General Patton's grandson was a member of my class, and I was the lone blackface in that group, as it turns out. And so it was a great opportunity for me to learn a whole new world, culture difference. You know, you're going into a different culture environment when, I'm dating myself again. You look over your roommate's album and you don't recognize a single artist. Yes, I was in a different culture, definitely. Ended up, my test scores weren't that great. I mean, to say they reached out into the projects and pulled me up there, but given the opportunity, so I didn't have the background that most of these other, my classmates had. And it was a struggle at first, but ended up graduating 5th in the class, which said, give this black boy an opportunity. Away we go. Went on to Dartmouth College so Ivy League school, became a, quote, Ivy League mathematician, ended up getting accepted into Harvard Business School, chose for interesting reasons, got the religious spirit, where really recognizing that my ministry was different from the business world. My ministry was different. And I got to say, Nate, I found my ministry. I've learned this whole thing called facilitation is an amazing thing, because what I was gifted with, and we all have gifts from our creator, but my gift was the ability to bring a group of people together and figure out a process where at the end of that time, all the heads are going like this at the same time. And so it doesn't matter whether it's the strategic plan for the government of Jamaica, getting their 120 government ministers and nonprofit and community people together to decide what they need to do for the government of Jamaica, or helping a major computer corporation identify their 3 major barriers to growth, and then getting those 30 leaders to agree on, here are the strategies to address that. Or here in Atlanta in 1995 decided they wanted to put together, get this, Vision 2020, where they wanted Atlanta to be in the year 2020. This is back in 1995. And so they put together 10 groups, each group with a different mission, one focused on energy, another focused on education, another economic development, housing, transportation, public safety. So these 10 groups, each group 60 to 100 people. My team's job was to facilitate each of those 10 groups through, get this, a year-long process where each group would meet once a month for a year to develop their component of the Atlanta's 25-year strategy. And still, some of those projects from 1995 are still being implemented, which is just cool work. So it's fun. And so we ended up, the company started in 1992, where I was, as I like to say, employee number 1, world headquarters, our second bedroom, Nate, right? But we had plans. And today, We are the largest provider of professional facilitators in the country. We train people to facilitate. We've trained over 35,000 people how to do what we do. And we have 600 facilitators under contract. It's just fun work to how do you help a group get to an endpoint. So that's kind of the story of who we are. So started out as nothing to really having an impact. I've written 7 books on facilitation, showing people whether you're a facilitative leader, whether you're a facilitative consultant, whether you're a professional facilitator, here's how you apply these same tools in your environment, in your sphere. So you too get all the heads going like this at the same time. So it's cool stuff.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So obviously a ton of experience has gone into what you've built here. If I'm sitting in the audience listening to this interview or watching this interview, how would I know I'm a good fit to work with you? Who is your ideal client?
Oh, excellent. And so while you can imagine for this kind of work, it doesn't matter whether you're a $13 billion corporation trying to get your leadership team to all agree on a direction, or whether you're a government agency such as the CDC trying to say, you know what do we need to do to have a major impact on public health in America? Or if you're a nonprofit that's saying, you know what, we have our mission, but really we need to engage our volunteers in deciding how we do what we do. That's us. When you are trying to make a decision and you recognize that having a group of people involved in the decision making could create a better decision with much higher levels of buy-in and commitment because they were in the room creating it. That's when you call us, because it takes a different set of skills. Because if it's just you and your leadership team behind closed doors trying to decide something, you fight it out. But you know what? If you have a group where you're trying to get everyone heard and people feeling like they were heard, understanding the issues, and then coming to a conclusion as to what works. We know how to do this. We know the 3 reasons people disagree. There are only 3. We know how to manage dysfunction and how to keep a leader from dominating, how to deal with people who are being quiet, how to deal with the naysayers. We have the skills and techniques to do that. We know how to create a process where if this is your endpoint, here are the steps to take your group through so that they get there. Those are the skills of a facilitator. And so if you're looking to get all the heads going like this, we know how to do that.
I love it. I love it. So that seems pretty unique. Do you feel like there's anyone out there in the market that does what you guys do?
Absolutely. There are, in fact, here's what's interesting. There are in the country right now, less than half a dozen organizations that have 3 or more professional facilitators on staff. Less than half a dozen. But there are literally thousands of individual practitioners. So if you're a nonprofit and you want to have a strategy session, you call your best friend and say, hey, who did you use? Who did you use? There are a bunch of individuals, but as we like to say, there's a bunch of mediocre facilitators out there. There are some good facilitators out there, but there are only very few great facilitators. And we were one of the organizations instrumental in creating something called the Certified Master Facilitator, which is part of what's the International Institute for Facilitation, certifying facilitators. There's less than 60 of those in the world, and 11 of those 60 are on our team.
That is awesome. That is incredible.
Yeah. So it helps make the difference and say, here's what great facilitation looks like.
Awesome. That's great. So you've kind of shared your story with us, what you've gone through to build this business. As you look back, I'm really curious, is there 1 or 2 major hurdles that you feel like you had to overcome to build the business that you have now? And as a follow-up, how were you able to overcome those?
How much time do we have, Nate? And this is a wonderful journey. So we 2 years ago, we celebrated our 30th year in business, and we had a huge gala, and I had a chance to do a video series on our history. And it's something that will last after us, because as employees come on, they can read or listen to the history of the company. But if you've read the book Growing Pains, which for any entrepreneur I'd highly recommend, because it tells you here are the stages that a business goes through, and here are the issues you have to settle in that stage. Otherwise, if you move on to the next stage without having those issues settled, it's going to cause problems. And the book quotes all kinds of companies that we used to hear about and wonder, hey, what happened to that company? Well, here's what happened to them, right? Didn't solve the issue. So great book. For us, I wish, and I guess I'm going to name three things, three really big ones. I really wish hire for what you need. Always hire for where you're going. The biggest heartbreak for me in those first 10 years was having to let go of somebody, the second employee of the company, who was great for what he was, but couldn't take us for where we were going. And I just didn't know to think about as you're bringing on people, make sure you're hiring for where you're going, because he had some obvious constraints. Great guy, great skill set for what we had him doing, but did not have the runway to take us through. So first. Second, I will never forget, as long as I live, March, April, May 2001. That was the hardest time in my professional life. We were, at that point, a $2 million company. Nate, we were making money. It was fun, having a great time. But April 15, we sold the largest deal we had ever sold. And our business model, the reason why facilitators like working for us, is we know after you do work, 15 days later, you're going to get paid for it. Period. Doesn't matter whether we've collected the money or not, you will get paid for what you do. Well, we didn't think we had a receivables problem then, but we did the projections and realized May 15th, we're going to run out of cash. We're not going to be able to pay people. So I went to the bank and said, hey, we need a bigger line of credit. Would you extend it? We had given them all the information. They said, no problem. This will go through. Great. May 1, I hadn't heard from them. Call them up. Hey, Mr. Wilkinson, I was just going to call you. We need just a couple of other pieces of information. Oh, cool. May 13th, getting kind of close there, Nate. Call the bank up. And I hear these words. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilkinson, we're not going to be able to give you the loan. Why? Well, your receivables are too high. Absolutely. We know that. That's why we're asking for the money. As you know, right? Banks loan you money when you don't need it. If you
Absolutely.
need it. And they said, wait a minute, you knew our receivables on day one. How come you didn't? I said, well, we thought you would find other ways of getting it. I was livid. I have to say, Nate, the words that came out of my mouth, I would not want anyone else, especially my daughters, to have heard what I said to that bank rep. It was a very scary time because I knew on May 15th, there was a strong possibility I was going to have to say to our people, I'm sorry, we can't pay you. Or go to 10 of my friends and say, can you lend me $50,000? Don't know when I'm going to be able to pay you back, but could you please? I've got to make payroll. It was a frightening time. I kept going up the ladder until got to a vice president who said, actually senior vice president, Mr. Wilkinson, I got to tell you, we really can't loan you the money. You don't have, the risk tolerance is way too high, but we have treated you so poorly. I'm going to approve this. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
But what that taught me, and it was too, on the spiritual side, it taught me that when I'm willing to let go, things will happen, because I was not sleeping. And I finally said, okay, God, if leadership strategies needs to go away, I'm open to that. If you want me to go to friends, very humble, be glad to, you just share with me what to do. I'm open and receptive. It is okay. And just being willing, having gone through that experience, all the other things that have happened since then have been piece of cake. I know we're done. When 2001 happened and we were down 50%, no worries. In 2008, no worries. The pandemic, no worries. It just didn't matter because I knew, yeah, we'll get it taken care of. I knew it. But I did learn the lesson pay attention to cash, right? What do we say, right? Profit is, revenue is vanity. Profit is sanity. Cash is reality. And so we had not been paying attention to cash. Another lesson, learning about putting in place forecasting systems where you really could forecast the future. We were basically managing the business in the rearview mirror. And so our forecasting systems have helped us where the first recession, we lost 50%, and it took us 6 years to recover. When 2008 hit, we lost 20%, and we were back the next year. When the pandemic hit, we were down $250,000 in profit for the first 6 months. The next 6 months, we made it all up. It was just being able to learn to, hey, be resilient, bring the team together, figure out how we're going to make it happen. Anyway, so that was a bunch tied up, but you can tell I can go on for a minute, but it's a great lesson. Pay attention to your numbers and make sure you have the things in place to be managing for the future, not based on the past.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. You've shared some wonderful insight. So as we kind of start to wrap up the interview, I'd love to jump into a couple just rapid fire questions. So like,
please, all right. It's a quick answer. Okay. Thank you. You know, I appreciate you positioning me. Top of mind.
All right. So first, what is the number one key to success for you?
For me, key to success is, everybody says, it's about people and getting people who match your values and can inspire their success.
Awesome. What would be your number one piece of advice for a small to medium-sized business owner?
Ooh, God, I can't do one, have to do three. One, do what you love, because the money will come if you're doing what you love. Two, recognize nothing happens until something's sold. That your first focus has to be every day on selling until you get to the point where you have other people who makes that their number one. And three, pay attention to your numbers.
Awesome. Awesome. So you mentioned a great book earlier. Is there one book that you are currently reading now or have read recently that you would highly recommend?
Ooh, okay. Now I've gotten deep on the spiritual side, so let me go over to the business side. What would I highly recommend? You know what? I'm going to cheat and recommend my own book, which is, this is for leaders, the 8 core practices of facilitative leaders. Really understanding how do you inspire people to their greatness.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. I love it. So before I get to my last question today, how can others learn more about you, more about your business? What's the best way to get in contact?
Okay, let's go both ways. The one, learning about me, because I am in preferment now, as we call it. Some people say retirement, I call it preferment, where you get to do what you prefer to do. And so I am spreading the word about facilitation through keynote speaking. And so they can find me at www.michaelthefacilitator.com. So if you look up Michael the Facilitator, find me. The company and all the work that we do around facilitation is called Leadership Strategies. Short lead strat is what we go by. So www.leadstrat.com.
Perfect. I'll link both of those in the description so people can easily find them. My last question for you today, you touched on it just a minute ago. What most inspires you as you move forward?
And it is the spiritual piece. I mean, I really do recognize that we've all been given gifts, and our job, what we've been asked to do, is share those gifts with others. I am fanatic about the power of facilitation. That if leaders can learn that there are tools they can use to get people inspired, engaged, and committed to action, boy, it not only helps them, it helps the employees, helps the organization. Facilitative leadership works, but you got to work it.
Awesome. Fantastic. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great learning about you, and I've learned tons on your insight.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it, Nate. Have a great day.